Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions in the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. On this show, I interview lawyers ditching the billable hour and experts who can help attorneys move beyond billing time. Thanks to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes. More on them later. And use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED when signing up. You get 10% off, and it supports the show. The best way to support the show is to share it with someone you know. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. Rich Rodgers, thrilled to have you on the Law Subscribed podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matthew. Been listening to you for a while and excited to be here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have another listener on the show. I'm getting more and more of them. And you've got a really great background, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we do, go ahead and give yourself a little introduction for my listeners.
Yeah, I'm Richard Rodgers. Startup Tech Law is my new firm. I started this last year as a way to help startup founders go from what I call formation to funding and beyond. I've been a 4-time founder myself in various startups, and also started back in, I hate to say how old I am now, but back in the .com era as an attorney just out of law school. And I worked for a big firm, was in the venture capital tech group there, got really excited about being an entrepreneur, left about a year into it and started my first startup. And that was full of what every, I guess, entrepreneur kind of experiences, the ups and downs and the roller coasters. But I'm pretty much addicted to being a startup founder as well. And I just want to help every founder and startup I can. And from that, I've also had a marketing background, which is kind of interesting when I meet with clients, having almost 20 years also kind of working as a CMO and a digital marketing agency owner and bringing that to my practice, and thought, let me kind of combine all this stuff into one thing and see if it works, see if people want this. So fortunately they do. I'm glad, but that's my story.
Yeah, I mean, you've started a law firm, and begs the question, did you ever think with the law license and being at startups for years, you would ever start a law firm?
No, honestly, I didn't. My wife still asks, like, are you seriously going back into law? Like, well, yeah, I mean, I've been doing it, but, it's just sort of helping this one, doing that one. But to go full heads, speed ahead to go into a law firm or build a law firm, I didn't think I would do that again. But I've been consulting for a while, and I'm, helping out a number of startups. And I figured this is probably the best way to do it. I've actually gotten, I feel like I've never been stronger in my career as a lawyer before because of all of the things I've been doing on the business side, and from being a founder and sitting in investor meetings and talking to VCs and going through with some of my lawyers. I've worked with a lot of top law firms. Like, I know what to expect. I know what's happening, and I've done all of that work for myself. Let me go now give this to somebody else and help them.
So I want to know if you've ever had to bill your time. And then also I want to know, what were the business models of these startups that you were at?
Yeah. I billed my time a lot, and I absolutely hated it, which is why I wanted to get into subscriptions. And when I heard your podcast, it was like, aha moment. It's like somebody else thinks this way too. I loved it. I was consulting for about 12 years on and off. I had the first company I had when I was a lawyer, I was sitting down every 6 minutes or whatever, right? I hated that. I couldn't do that. I'm too creative a person, to be honest with you. But when I got out, my first company, what it became was a company called 3dtour.com. And, going back like 20 some years ago, we were doing virtual tours, digital photography for major hotel chains. And I worked with the Philadelphia Eagles. My first client got really, and I think I kind of got lucky, but I pursued it for a while, but I got them as my first client. It kind of made it a lot easier once you get them, especially in Philly, to get the Eagles. Then I got the Phillies and IHG Hotels chain. I did a deal with realtor.com. And it's kind of funny, when you still go to realtor.com or Zillow, you'll see that little map that says 3D Tour. That was what we did. That's what I got onto that. So maybe that'll be my gravestone one day, like 3D Tour guy. But then I turned that into a digital marketing agency. And we were at a time where every client was asking, can you do this for our website, and SEM and SEO, and getting into video marketing and mobile marketing and social media. There's this wave in the 2000s that we just kept saying, yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll do it for you. And that turned into another startup venture and another startup venture. And the other one I had was a company called Loso, which and was a local social mobile CRM platform for businesses with a back-end rewards and payment system. We had gone through the whole venture capital, dog and pony show, got funded, hit the Series A wall, kind of didn't know what to do with it. And I then had another company, which was international logistics and shipping company that was later sold to our biggest competitor. And along the way, I just kind of learned that being a startup, you really have a certain type of maybe crazy mentality to think that you're going to change the world. And I think, Steve Jobs said those that are crazy enough to think they can do it are the ones that do. And it takes a special type of person to think that they're crazy enough to be a startup owner and do this in a way. And that's what I relate to them. And I want to kind of make sure that they don't have all of the problems that I had and the pitfalls that I had. So, but yeah, I've had an interesting journey along the way.
Yeah. I mean, and I as a firm owner myself, like and my target market is more very small business owners, right? Not necessarily like the startup ecosystem, like the high growth tech startup ecosystem, because I myself am a solo small business, founder, but that you have that background. And I do know so many attorneys in that startup space that lack that experience that you have. I mean, it must set you apart. And I want to get into like the value that you're packaging for those clients next. But even before we get there, so you talked about all these startups. How are they making money? Where's it flat fee, fixed fee, subscription? Like how were they bringing in revenue?
It depending on the startup, they were, price per drink. Some of them, a services company, software companies were subscription. We had a B2C company where we had users all around the globe that were using it. They had a low monthly fee. We structured it and that we had, sort of that value in the middle and the middle one, the high one, the low one. And that was something that they paid monthly as sort of the ticket to admission to get into the platform, to get the benefits we would offer. And then it was a hybrid. So you could get a discount. And I modeled a lot of what I did with that into what I'm doing now with Startup Tech Law. So understanding from a marketing background, understanding how strong of a business you can grow by having a subscription base, understanding every month, how much you're going to have to spend, how much you're going to take in. And it just makes it so much easier and it makes it a more solid foundation when you do that. But I'd also, in addition to having startups, I worked at a company called Agilent Technologies, which was a big global company. And we built, we had a digital marketing agency within that company. And coming back from when I was digital marketing owner, agency owner, which I still am, the thing I always hated was billables to clients and trying to get paid on them later. And then cutting down, like we did X number of hours and we got to chop it off for some of the clients. They just think you can do that and you should do that. When I went in-house, we had digital agency. It was great. We had one client. We always got paid. We had great benefits and bonuses and all that. It was wonderful. And I just, I said, I'm never going to go back to billable again. And so when I started thinking about this, the law firm model, I looked at like a startup tech company, to be honest with you. What's broken and what do we need to disrupt and what's the problem we need to solve for here? And I talked to a lot of startup owners and I've been in a community of startups here in Philadelphia. The problem is that most startups don't know where to really start when it comes to the law. And they reach out to someone who's an accountant and they tell them to set up an LLC. And yet they want to go out and get funding the next week. It's like, well, we got to shift now into a C Corp. Or, when I see that they're trying to do something online and get a trademark, they're running up against bigger companies that already have that mark, and they try to do it through LegalZooms or whatever in the world. And they're wasting a lot of money, but also a lot of time. They're not doing it the right way. And I thought, let me kind of combine that ease of use that you see with LegalZoom with experience and someone that can take them and has been in their shoes and show them what they really need from the beginning and not waste so much time and waste so much money. Because in a startup, especially to get funding, it's like sands in an hourglass. Every single dollar you get just goes so fast and you have to really budget. And being a lawyer myself, I worked with some great law firms, but at the end of the month, I got a $15,000 legal bill. I'm like, what did you guys really do for that? And I know that you don't have that $15,000 extra pot sitting there and every dollar is precious. So I thought subscription's the way to go and then flat fee on top of it. And I tell my clients, I do not want to do billable hours for you. I'm going to have that as a side if you need it, I can do that. But we're going to do everything through a subscription model and also through flat fee. And I'll tell you in advance how much this independent contractor agreement is going to be, or, NDA or whatever it be. And I think that for me works better because I can devote more time to my clients. I don't have to look at the clock all day. And honestly, the relationship is so much better.
I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but I just want to highlight for the listeners that, you didn't come at this from scratch and just be like, all right, I'm starting a law firm. It's going to be subscription. And then you just built the model that's on your website, which everyone should go check out, startuptechlaw.com, link, of course, in the show notes, and see you've got your pricing listed there. So welcome to the club. I mean, you've been in the club of the lawyers who list some prices on their website. And so, you're coming at it from this experience of seeing things charged per unit or per hour. You've been involved with businesses that have subscription, and you have the marketing background. And so you're sort of synthesizing all this into the type of pricing and product that you're delivering. I don't want people to think my next question means that like marketing is sales, because it's not. It's related, right? It's part of the pipeline. It's part of the funnel. But it's interesting to think about, that you're also bringing that perspective when putting this stuff out there. I want to ask about the pricing while I've got it pulled up. And that is something that I want to know if what the intention was behind this, or if you've heard any feedback from clients on this. So I was reading some of the copy, and I saw how you said something along the lines of, for your monthly coffee budget, you could get started with me, which I think is a good analogy. I think that's a high coffee budget in my opinion, but it's within reason, depending on where you live and how expensive your latte is from Starbucks, right? And that package is the $2.99 per month package, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So when I'm looking at this, when I was going down, I just want to, put this out there for people too. Also to encourage, if you have a subscription model and you're going to come on the show, I'm going to give you I'm going to engage in some legal journalism here and some subscription therapy.
There we
go. So I see from left to right, which is how most consumers in the US are going to read. The first plan I see is $9.99. And I'm thinking, that's really expensive coffee. Like when I was first looking at it. And so usually when we're looking at software, this is of course a law firm, so I guess you should be outside that frame. But if I'm looking at a subscription model for software, I'm seeing low, medium, high pricing, but you do medium, low, high. I'm just wondering why that is.
Honestly, it's all part of the AV game. So if you look at it today at 4:00, it's probably going to maybe change a little bit.
Okay.
Honestly, it's never the same. And I'm actually experimenting a lot with my ad campaigns, the targeting, the audiences, and how I include those three columns of the startup and go plan up to the fractional general counsel. Honestly, it's always in the far right, but those two are always in the middle, and they're kind of rotating back and forth. And I do that for a reason, to see how certain ads are performing with that. And in fact, if you go to my homepage, you'll see that there is pricing now on the homepage. Last week, that was off of the homepage. Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting is I had it before and it didn't perform well. And then I started getting a lot of calls and people asking me what the pricing was. And I started realizing that they're not clicking on the legal plan up top. They're coming through and they're just booking a consultation with me. Well, let me put that back on and experiment now with a whole different set of ads. And what I found in the last week since I did that, I had 4 new clients sign up. And I think I'm now in that A/B mode where I'm going to flip around the pricing for that. But it changes. It's kind of dynamic how it's going to change it.
Yeah. And thank you for pointing that out. So I had not clicked on legal plans. I was just scrolling down on the homepage and saw the monthly legal plans. But when you do click on legal plans, at least at this time of day, and maybe you should explain what A/B testing is, because I don't know if all the listeners will know what that is. But when I do click on legal plans, I do see it has the low, medium, high price in that order, which at least for me is like the way that I'm used to consuming that type of information. Now, don't get me wrong. I love challenging the status quo. I was just trying to get an idea of why you were doing it. And the fact that you're A/B testing something makes sense, just to see what's the sign up rate when they're looking at something differently. So go ahead. Before I ask the next question, tell me in the marketing world, what is A/B testing?
So essentially you're taking a variation. In this case, the startup and go plan is $300 and the standard legal plan is $1,000 per month, $999 or $299, which everyone knows that if they buy, anything, it's 0.99, 0.99. It's psychologically, I guess, more appealing to somebody who think that they're not spending $1,000, but it's still $999. With an A/B test, you are in one instance of your ads, you're running a maybe a different graphic or a different image of somebody or a different topic line, tagline. When it comes to your website, you can adjust certain sections. So an A/B test might be where I have the start and go plan in the middle for certain audiences. And then on other campaigns, I'm pushing that over to the left side and I'm pushing more in the standard legal plan in the middle for $9.99. It just really, what it does is it helps you figure out what works better. Like I said, maybe about a month ago, I had the standard legal plan, which was in the middle. And I also didn't have pricing on my homepage. And when I put it back on my homepage, I was really testing to see now people are responding to it. And I think the other thing I was looking at doing is that middle startup and go plan at $2.99. I need to put a special value identifier on top of that so that if people come to the page for the first time, they see that this is the best value. If they see just a little graphic like that, they're more likely to think that that is the one that's for them. And then I'll click on that. So that part of the next test is I'm going to have that as another option as well. But what you're essentially doing is you're experimenting to see what clicks with your customers or your users.
Another thing you're doing that's really fascinating, and I've really only seen, I think for ongoing clients, Jim Hart do this. I know that Jess Birkin does this for subscribers to her firm, but you have on your website the ability to just purchase a privacy policy, purchase agreements. Under the services tab, you've got a bunch of flat fee prices for a bunch of different documents. And so, first of all, again, kudos to you for listing prices for things on the internet for a law firm, because attorneys don't do it. This is clearly a productized legal service, right? All products is what you're referring to them as. I want to know how you're handling this from are these your clients sort of a perspective, or is it just a product? Do they have to be your clients to get access to these? Or can you truly I could buy your MSA right now from your website and I don't need to be a client?
You have to be a client to get access to the template library. Part of the value of being a member or part of the subscriber base for the legal plan, every one of those agreements is part of the template plan that you get access to. So if you spend $300 a month, you get access to any one of those. And what I do is I create a Slack channel for my clients. And I think, to be honest with you, what I hear from my clients, the best value that I offer is the Slack channel, where they can contact me 24/7 and say, I need an NDA or I need this or that. At that level, at $300, these startups are not really in a position to start spending $1,500 or $3,000 on an agreement. So they may go out to wherever they can find a template and they'll just put it together and try to do it themselves. I want to try to prevent that as much as possible, but yet still help them along the way. So good example, they'll hook me up on Slack and say, I need an NDA for this. I can give them the template, which comes out of that same library, but I will go through and actually have it more automated now. So I can give them the template with their address, their company name, the founder signature line. Or if you just came to the site, you're not a client of mine, you can go in and buy one of those products, let's say. And with that, we will have an engagement letter. I will say that I do have a quick, conflicts check to make sure, but as well, because I don't want somebody coming in and taking an NDA against one of my clients, which who knows, maybe that can happen. So, but what it does is it also breaks the ice. So now they ask you about what's your service and how does this thing work? I've never seen a lawyer that does anything like this before. And it's never been, and it's almost a year, it's never been a case where someone just bought an agreement. They kind of came in through that and then they pass through and then they become a monthly subscriber. So it's an interesting way to sort of ease them into what a subscription model is and how it could work. No one's seen it before. It's very, very rare in this case.
There's still so few. I mean, there's so much. There's a huge education gap to cross. And apologies to the listeners because I've said this now in almost every episode. But in the time of recording, where I'm not too far away from ABA Tech Show, where Stephanie Everett on the panel I was on with her said we need a Got Milk campaign, that there's other ways lawyers charge and they can be predictably priced, right? Like collectively, we should all get together and do that campaign, right? It would help us all.
The best part of the Got Milk campaign, it wasn't even about milk. It was about the lack of milk. So it's when you think about what they're doing, we as lawyers have, and I think we're kind of in almost the same age. We come up from a different time where we worked with big firms and it was a certain way of doing things. You had to put in those billable hours. You had to then get on the partner track and get clients and then do the billable hours and then figure everything else out, work 90 hours a week. And it's crazy. And we didn't have all of the tools. Honestly, we couldn't do what we do now without having the ability to automate a lot of this, have the tools available with AI coming on. I know things like Paxton. I hear that. I came actually across Paxton because of your podcast. These are things that lawyers have access to now that they didn't have before. And it makes it so much easier for them to provide better value to their clients. And law, I've never been more excited about practicing law and the profession of law than I am right now. Since 1999, when I passed the bar to now, this is honestly the most excited I've ever been about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really exciting time. I just want to confirm because this is kind of crazy, but it's a good kind of crazy. Like I could get a trademark or I could get not that, but I could there's a subscription agreement on there for $1,000 and I could pay the $1,000 or I could sign up as a subscriber and get access to that document and other documents and not have to pay the $1,000 when I use it. Or I do pay the $1,000 after I'm a subscriber.
You would pay the $1,000. You wouldn't be, if you wanted to just get the document, you could just hire me to do that. And I'll spend the hour or two, whatever it is, and deliver that to you. And that could be the end of the engagement right there. But if you become a subscriber for the $1,000, then I would actually include that with a whole bunch of other things, like a document review, in fact, on top of that. And then also included with that $1,000, the standard legal plan, is 2 hours of what usually turns into meeting time, consulting time, or billable hour as well. And I do list this, there is a billable hour component to it as well, which is at a reduced rate. So what I want to do is I tell my clients, I do not want to do billable hours for you, but sometimes needed. If you have an investor prep, for instance, you want me to go through and help you with your pitch deck, or we'll do a practice with me pretending that I'm an investor. I will do that for you, but it could be an hour, it could be 2 hours. We might have to do it again a third time or second time, whatever. But I also make a caveat that you may need to actually sign something that you will promise not to fire me, because I will act like the most obnoxious New York venture capitalist you'll ever meet. And at the end of that pitch practice, if you can get through it with me, you can get through it with anybody. But I'm not going to be the nice guy that I am now, just to let you know. But that's part of, additional hours that come on top of that. Where I try to provide value to clients is if they have a need for like an independent contractor agreement that comes up or something. I'll tell them in advance that this is, we've already done enough work on your plan that you're maxed out this month. The additional work for this contract, or if you wanted to get a trademark now, it's going to be a flat fee. And I'll tell them what the flat fee is in advance. They sign off on it. And then we proceed with, completing that work for them. This way, there's no hidden surprises at the end of the month, how much things are going to cost them.
Okay. So it's not what I thought it was. And we're going to come back to why you're still tracking your time and billing your time, which you don't need to be doing. You should just be pricing your services differently. But that's later. First, this is what I thought you were doing. And I think if you did this, you'd probably be able to increase your prices and it'd be reasonable. I mean, no legal ethics provided. But what I thought you were doing, and I don't know, because you're charging a lot of money for some of these services, for like the flat fee stuff. And I think rightfully so. I think the value of them are pretty clear, and it's still going to save more money than what if they had to go pay a lawyer by the hour to draft them from scratch, right? But what I thought it was, I'm curious to know for you or for any other listeners who might want to do this thing, is at first I thought you just meant like they get access to the suite of documents as a subscriber. And if that's true, I mean, you could double or triple what you're charging per month, because like if they use one of these documents a month, they've gotten the value, even if they don't take advantage of all the other subscription benefits. And that's just not something like if I had more years of experience as a transactional attorney, because I pivoted from litigation to transactional, like I would be offering something like that. Like I still try to do it where even if you only use one of the things that are part of my subscriber benefits, that's worth the monthly subscription. Like I've still tried to design it like that, but I don't have this document, this product, database like you have that you could sell to your clients a la carte. And I almost wonder if there's a thing there, because I think what Jim Hart does is he just has a separate business entity. And it's like, these are just products, because then you don't have to worry about multi-jurisdictional concerns. Because what happens if they're outside your licensed jurisdiction? Or, if you don't want to waive into a state, pay the extra fees, if they come to you from, a state that's not California or Florida or Louisiana, where you could actually waive in, right? So, it's like one of these things where maybe these products would do well as like a separate entity. but besides that, like, I think there's something there too. And if it's not all of these things, because I mean, you can't do like, I mean, I don't know, maybe you can. I don't want to say you can't do anything. I have a hard time knowing how you could like just include a trademark registration in search with a monthly subscription, right? Like that, I feel like that's going to be hard. But some of these things like the privacy policy, the subscription agreement, shareholder agreement, like, you know, if you were to bundle these and they get access to these, like if they were going to just subscribe, and I remember talking to Jim about this, if they were going to just subscribe just to download all your forums and then unsubscribe, they were never going to hire you they were never going to hire you anyway. And that's $300 that you wouldn't have had previously. So who cares? As long as they don't like suck a bunch of your time for that one single month that they're staying subscribed. And that brings me back to, first I'll get your feedback on that, and then we'll get back into why you're still tracking time. So what do you think about all that? When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional-only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high-quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at 650.com and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form and scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSUBSCRIBED at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice, but with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show.
I think you're right on, to be honest with you. And what I do is I do it a little bit differently, where I do have the template library, that's where you see published. I don't give them access to it though. They have access to it as part of every one of my plans, but they don't have a place where they can go to and just click download. And I did that for a reason, in that I don't want someone coming along and saying, yeah, $300, let me pay that one time and just download 20 different template agreements from you. And that's like, so I kind of thought about that in advance, and I'm like, this isn't going to work. And I don't want to have, because I'm always maybe updating, changing it too. And I want to make sure that my site's always consistent and updated too. So what I did is I set it up so that in Slack, they can communicate with me and say, Rich, I need this template. I don't want to go buy it from wherever. I pay $300 a month. Let me just get that template from you, and then I can provide that to them. And this way it protects me from having someone do a data dump basically. But and so far it's worked out great. I've never had a client that said, hey, I wish I had them all at one time. It's always as needed. And I think it works out better that way. And it usually turns into, well, I need this, but then I really didn't need that. And it sets up a conversation. Now I use that in Slack and can kind of convert them into, well, this is really a consulting agreement, whatever it would be. And kind of what they thought it was is different. And that's where I can kind of provide that value and guidance. Well, it took me a few minutes to really help them out on that. And that's why they come back the next month when the next thing happens.
Yeah. And it's hard to appreciate the value of having an attorney to be able to work through a template with, unless you've actually done that. And if you're just going to subscribe and download templates and leave, you're never going to get that experience. Yeah. And so I think that the way that you're doing that is a pretty smart approach. I mean, if I were you, I would put something on these services things that says, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, like subscribe to get access to these for less. And you don't even have to say for free or included, because maybe you want to change it to, it's 50% off, or like it's, 10% off or something to drive them to subscribe. Because but there's that's a huge subscriber benefit. And if I saw that I could just subscribe at whatever level, I mean, and maybe it's 50% off for the startup and go plan, and it's included with the standard legal plan and above, I don't know, A/B test it, ABC test it. But if I could see that when I'm on the all products page, I mean, that's a huge sell to just subscribe, and you want to be funneling them to subscriber, right?
100%. Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting. I did actually just start doing that on the startup and go plan. Again, back to A/B testing. So many of the companies that came in through that plan need a company to go with. So what I did was I cut back my corporate formation package, which It's about $500 savings for subscribers. So people are signing up, they're subscribing, and then they're getting that company formation package at half off of what I would charge anyone else for if they just wanted to hire me for that. And that became a really great value for them. And not only do they get it set up the right way, but when I look at my corporate formation package, what I give them is not anything they would get from any of the template sites. We help them with the EIN, of course, and bylaws, unanimous written consent in the first meeting, and founder stock purchase agreement. That alone is a really, really, that's an agreement that you're going to spend a lot of money on. And especially if 2 or 3 founders, and that's part of the package that I offer, but I also set it up right. And then I became a partner firm with Carta. So I set up Carta for them. And we use Carta, most likely. We're going to use the Carta Safe Agreement or Y Combinator Safe. And they get the startup and go plan. They get on Carta. They don't pay for it until they raise $1 million. And we set that up for them as well. And that becomes their cap table. And that's another just add-on value that we just started. So I guess I'm saying this is so new and it's evolving every month. I think when we first talked, my pricing was completely different. And I was at that point when I think we're joking, every week it changes. And I kind of I landed on these 3 pricing tiers, and I think I'm going to stay here for a while. And the one that I have at 300 is really, I think, the perfect number for startups that are just ready to start and get incorporated.
Yeah. I mean, obviously do whatever you want to do that's comfortable. These are just my opinions looking at the pricing. And I'm so glad that you have your pricing listed because we could really do a deep dive on that. And I think that's valuable for the listeners too, because I'm not able to do that with so many guests, but I am able to do it with you. So I think, I see a lot of things like billable time, 1 document review up to 8 pages. I mean, you're giving yourself a lot of stuff to track. And if it were me, if I were in your shoes, I'd be like, I don't want to track that stuff. I don't want to have to think about every document being only 8 pages. I don't want to have to think about how much time I'm spending with a client. And if I'm a client, I'm thinking, well, I can only call you 2 hours, so I'm not going to call you unless I absolutely need you, which reduces the amount of communications you have with your client and reduces the bonds that you're able to form and the more you're able to learn about their business. So you still have that wall of separation between you and forming a long-term relationship with your client when you're capping them at how much time they could talk to you. And so that's hurting your business in the long term. And when you say, you'll do rounds with them of their pitch deck. First of all, amazing. I know I'm not the only lawyer who helps some clients with that. And I'm not even the best fit for a startup lawyer. I'll usually refer them to somebody who's in their licensed jurisdiction and can help them with something, but sometimes they still keep me on because I'm so affordable otherwise. And so I have done a few of these pitch deck reviews, but I don't charge separately for it because I know that when they need a lawyer for the stuff that I could help them with, because I helped them with that and they were a paying client at the time, they're going to come back to me. And I've only been in business for myself for 2 years and they've come back to me. And so I know that it works. And so that I have to cap, I'm only going to review this pitch deck with you once. First of all, I only want to give them so much time at a time. So I'm going to give them a Calendly link. And I see you use Microsoft Bookings, which again, I want to highlight how great the website is that you just go there and you can click on, just like my website, book a free consultation, boom. Click right there, Microsoft Bookings, they could schedule a call, easy peasy. That was my biggest lesson my first 6 months to a year that I should have done from the beginning. You're doing that. So you're using Microsoft Bookings, give them a link and it's 30 minutes. This is the time we have for the pitch deck. And you don't have to track, you don't have to cap them. If you need another time for the pitch deck, because you want them to be successful, because if they're successful, they raise another round, they could keep paying your monthly fee.
That's it.
I think the incentives are there. So I think you're still, I don't think you're really thinking about lifetime value for the subscribers because you're capping your time spent with them. But if they're successful because you help them with their pitch deck maybe 1 more time than you would have liked to, or 30 more minutes than you would have liked to, they're able to raise that next round and they go from startup and go plan to standard legal plan. They never would have done that. And maybe they don't reach out to you because they're out of hours and they're going to have to start paying you by the hour again. And you're missing out on those opportunities when you're tracking your time. Have I convinced you to stop tracking your time, Rich?
I know by the time this airs, the price, and this is going to probably change.
That's true. That's a good point. That's actually a good point because we're this is going to publish in 6 months, probably, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, right.
How recorded in advance I am. But it's still good. I think it's a good time capsule. And for people who are listening then, I'm really glad you brought that up, Rich. Go check out Rich's website now and see how it compares to what we're talking about now. And Rich is going to come back on the podcast and around the time this podcast goes live, and then we'll be able to do an update episode.
I'm like, Matthew, I changed all my plans, all my pricing. I'm completely out of business now.
I don't think
I'm just
so.
kidding.
No, I don't think so because I think that, it's a different market than what I'm serving, but I still think like the value add that you can give your clients. Because I find, especially for the solopreneurs like me, like I'm giving them software that I'm using because I'm not just using legal specific software. And I want to get, while I still have you, the software that you're using, or if you're using anything custom, I'm telling them about Calendly. I'm telling them about Wave App. I'm talking to them about, all the stuff that I'm using as a solopreneur to automate my business. And so I'm able to essentially not just be legal advice and legal counsel, but also just like a good partner in their business, fractional team member as they grow their business.
Yeah,
And if they grow their business and I can help them with that, even with the non-legal things, like that's valuable. And I don't necessarily put that in my marketing copy, but with all of your startup experience, like the pitch deck stuff, like is that part of your pitch? Like when you've got them on like a sales call or a closing call, like you're not just getting all the legal stuff in the $9.99 a month. You're also getting a marketing expert, an exit, someone with experience exiting a startup, all these things, right? Like, is that part of your pitch?
it is actually. I tell right up front, this is a legal practice because what I've found and why I'm doing this, when you're looking for, you're starting your startup, you have this great idea, you get very excited about it. And then reality hits when I need to get incorporated. I need a trademark. Do I start with an LLC? And what about my founder's agreement? And how do I get investment? What type of, agreement should I give them? How does all of that stuff leads up to now we've got $250,000 in the bank first round. And now I got to do marketing. We have to figure out go-to-market plan. I see this over and over again. I was in their shoes. Let's combine this all into one thing. And I tell them up front, I'm going to tell you right now, the legal work is probably the easiest part of advising and consulting you. What is probably going to be the most difficult is getting you the right investor. There's a lot of bad investors out there you do not want to get in bed with. Let's figure that out in advance. My background is in account-based marketing, and account-based marketing is when you look at how you're going to build out your go-to-market plan, even finding investors and build out your tiered list of if I could really have that one investor, or, this is the type of investor I think would fit in my particular space or likes to invest in me and this type of area. Then you look at your go-to-market plan. Mostly what I do is in tech. A lot of my clients are in AI, coming out with software and service offerings, or it's B2B, a lot of it, and understanding your customer, your ICPs. And then I flip the hat and I become a marketer for them. And I'm giving them CMO level advice that they're hopefully not getting anywhere else at what they're paying for. And in addition, I'm still a partner in a marketing agency. So we're a brand strategy and a creative agency. And I've got some amazing partners that my clients are now hitting me up on Slack. Can you please introduce me to that agency that you're with? And I'm not pushing it on them, but they know I'm part of it. And I figured if there's a way to combine all of this into one practice, I don't know any other attorney yet that is telling you how to do marketing and also figure out the legal side of things for you.
That is so freaking cool. I at the time of recording, what the episode that went live today is with an attorney who wants to start leveraging the subscription model, but he's got like a financial background. He does taxes and all this other stuff, and we were talking about that. How could he combine his other skills with a subscription package that's valuable to the end user, to the client? And you've got that here, and I wonder if there's some kind of like, and I know like the business model of it, we are constrained by our rules of professional conduct, but like a subscription add-on, for another $500 a month where, your CMO too. And it's hard to sell because like you've talked about, people already have a hard enough time, like being like, oh yeah, you could subscribe to legal services. Like it's a new thing, but they're still thinking like, I have a legal thing. I need the lawyer. And only after working with the lawyer, who's also a marketing expert or business strategist or tax person, can you realize there's more value here than just that. But I've still found some people put off, even in the initial sales call, where I'm like, I'm not just going to help you with your legal stuff. I could be a strategist for your business. And they're like, well, I just want my legal stuff taken care of. So I feel like you run into any of that.
I run into it all the time. The other day I teach a brand strategy class at Temple. And I'm an adjunct there. I love it. My alma mater. And I was telling one of my clients, I've got to run down. I'm on the road. And they're like, wait a minute, you're teaching law? And then, no, actually I'm teaching brand strategy. And they're like, wait a minate, you can do that as well. I'm like, yeah, actually I can. And then it turned into a topic about, I really didn't like my trademark. The logo is not looking good. And I'm not really sure. My co-founder did this, and it turned into a half-hour meeting about, honestly, it came down to a teardown of their logo and why I told them they need to change the logo. Their color scheme doesn't work for them. And they're like, okay, so can you also do that for me? I think this is an add-on possibility, like you said. And probably by the time this airs, there's going to be maybe a fourth button somewhere else that says marketing services. But I also had another funny story, which I had a new client sign on, and I do a kickoff call with all my clients. So I kind of like make it like a subscription software where you join up, you sign up, and I don't, I want to make it a really good experience in the beginning. So I actually kind of don't even look at that time, and I'll tell them right at the beginning, let's prioritize what you need to get done, and let's do this. And at the end of the call, someone said, wait a minute, are you actually a lawyer? Are you licensed? Because we started talking about marketing almost 90% of the call. And I said, yeah, actually there's my degree is up on the wall. You can check, I'm completely licensed. I'm like, I signed up with you and I kind of forgot, like, you are actually a lawyer, because we just talked about marketing the entire time.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was joking or not, but
I think there's incredible value to that though. And it's with so many people, I'm curious to know this about you, if you consider yourself like a specialist or more of a generalist or somewhere in between. Because like people, I think most people that I've encountered think of like people are specialists, or they're in their zone and that's their only zone. And I mean, I'm not like that. And it sounds like you're not like that. So where do you put yourself in the spectrum of specialist to generalist? Some are like, if specialist is 0 and generalist is 100, what number are you?
I would probably say a year ago, this is a really, really good question. A year ago, I'd probably be more generalist. Thinking about general counsel work that I've done before, where you do have to know a little bit of everything, or at least know where to farm out things to the specialist. But now, a year into it, I think I'm more specialist in startup law, which, it is a specialized area. Mm-hmm. And I've been expanding and thinking about expanding what I do. I pretty much hit the max as far as clients. And I realized I need to bring other people in as well. So I've got support attorneys and others, paralegals that help. But I started thinking about creating a virtual legal model for this, bringing other attorneys that have startup experience. And I've had other podcasts and said, attorneys come to me and say, I love startup law. I want to be a startup lawyer. And I had a startup company years ago, and I think could be something I do. I want to give them the ability in a sort of like an of counsel or a virtual firm where they can come into startup tech law and get all of the access to the marketing I do, feed them the business and additional clients, and grow this for them as well. And I'm finding that there are other attorneys that have startup experience, founder experience, M&A, securities, and it is sort of a specialized practice now, I think. And if you Google startup lawyer, you'll see a whole number of big firms that say they do this, and this. Not many attorneys actually have the startup founder background as well. So I think it's really important, at least to have been in the shoes of a founder in a startup, but also I think the legal side of things are great. But in my practice in particular, unlike maybe a big firm or another, I want someone that understands that when we are a client, when we work with you, it's not just going to be, here's the SAFE agreement, here's the NDA. It's, why do you need that? Or do what's your go-to-market plan? Let's help you figure out how to get past the SAFE agreement to get to that next round, and work with you in between as a real true partner. And having attorneys that know that, I think it is a specialized area now.
Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. And also that I think I meant to be asking it more generally, you as the person, but you did answer it, you as the lawyer. And I think that is still good to have, because context matters, right? And so, Rich Rodgers, entrepreneur, might be a different answer of that question than, the founder of startup tech law, right? Where you're now specialized. And I think that's absolutely true, because just because I help businesses with business law stuff doesn't mean I'm going to be the best startup law attorney, which I realized very early on when one of my first potential clients was a venture capital firm. And after looking into it, was just like, it's way too deep. You got to go deep with startup law. And that's just, I built a practice where I don't go deep. That's like the whole point of the practice is I don't go deep. Yeah. Like I am generalist of a mindset, but also as a legal practitioner.
Well, I'll say one thing, when I started putting together the practice, I started realizing, okay, I did all this from the ground up. What do startups really need from the time that they incorporate to the time we get them funding and beyond? And I started putting this whole list together of, okay, founder stock purchase agreements. Okay, what do I have? What's in my library? Assignment and invention. Okay, we've got this. There's all of these bullets in the chamber, so to speak, that we really need to give to a startup founder. And they're going to need it along the way in that journey. Some of them need it now. Some of them will need it in a year or two from now. But they know we have it. And having that experience of, I think, executing it as an attorney, but also being a founder and learning that I need to do an 83B filing. Why? What is that thing? I have no idea what that is. You get all these questions and you have to be prepared for it. And it is a specialized area that's happened now, but building this practice showed me more and more that, there's a niche here. There really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'm glad I've had you and a couple of other lawyers on the podcast that just do startup law. So I know I could always have here's 2 or 3 attorneys when I get those clients that might be able, they might be able to help you out. So
now you got me thinking I need to create a startup lawyer association somewhere.
Oh man, I know. Just at the time of publication, I should have on the Law Subscribed website a tab now that is all the attorneys that have been on the podcast, their different licensed jurisdictions and their practice areas, because it's also important for alternative fee-based attorneys to know who we could refer our clients to who are now used to those alternative fees, of which there's still so few of us. And at least I could vouch for everyone who's come on the show.
There you go. So that's a Subscription Law Society of America or something like that.
I guess I don't want to run an association, man. I'm already busy enough as it is. I'm just happy to have a podcast. So time has flown like I knew it would. And in the time that we have left, tell us about the technology that you're using to power your practice.
Yeah, actually for my website, I started with WordPress and decided very quickly to get off of that. And I went with Wix and made that really easy for myself because their platform gives you everything you need, from payments to a CRM, invoicing and billing. It makes it really easy to change the site. So I do a lot of my own AB. So tomorrow you'll see that Start and Go plan on the left side. It just makes it easy to do that within a second. I also have a very growing, I hope by the time we speak next, Startup Resource Center. So within that, I've got the latest, a tear down of 85 pitch decks on TechCrunch and an NDA sample agreement and things like that startups can come to, whether they subscribe or not. I want to grow that out. It makes it really easy to do that. I also use bookings now, but I had Calendly. I tested bookings just because it seemed like the thing to do. And then I'm going back to Calendly, to be honest with you. It makes it so much easier, especially because I also have an agent, the marketing 360 Media is my marketing agency. So I need something to help coordinate my calendars better. And I find bookings is dropping the ball a few times. I'm double booking when I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I can't have that. I use Asana for all my project management. So everyone that works with me, up counsel attorneys, paralegals, we have an Asana project. So every one of we have to do, we have in progress and completed. We use that. We don't give that to our clients. We use that internally. And we also, the biggest thing is Slack. I live on Slack all day long. My marketing agency is on Slack. My law firm is now on Slack. My clients, when they first sign up, they get their own Slack channel with me. And it's just between, me and them. And then the founders, they look at this like, wow, you're on Slack, you're a lawyer. We use it all the time and I'm used to it. So that is the biggest value I think I offer, really is. And it's actually more secure than email and it's accessible. So we use that. I do have Office 365. I'm considering going back to Google Suite for emails, just makes it easier, but I'm not sure. But I use Office all the time and excited to see what Copilot comes up with. I've been experimenting with a few of the AI tools. I got on some of the trials like Husky AI, Paxton, Spellbook was pretty good. I know I'm probably going to forget a few, but I've tested all of them out. There's some really good things coming out. ChatGPT, of course. I built a GPT for AI lawyer, and I don't know. As of today, it's still like number one if you type in lawyer on the GPT store. So I hope it continues to grow. I get a lot of good feedback from that. Keep growing it, adding some things. I do have to put the disclaimer: it's legal information only. It's not legal advice. But I figured let me experiment and see what that does. And maybe that could be a feeder for me to get. But I think I actually had one client come in through that the other day. So that's what I do.
Oh man, I feel like we could just have 30 minutes just on the AI stuff and having a GPT. It's called AI Lawyer.
It's called AI Lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Man, I might want to do a LinkedIn Live where you show a demo of that, because that would be pretty cool. And then it helps spread the word, but also like that's pretty cool. So something else too that if you're going to switch back to Calendly, looking at your homepage, I wonder if that second book a free consultation link, you should just use like a Calendly embed code that just like shows the next dates you're available. Boom.
That would be cool.
Click right there, because I know you could do that for sure. Calendly gives you that embed code. Just copy and paste in that spot. And Wix.
That's a great idea.
Wix is a pretty good, website design platform. So they should allow you to just throw an embed code right there, right?
Easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
honestly, most lawyers have really bad websites. So clients that come to a website even if it's a Wix template, it's easy to manage. You don't need more than that. You really don't.
Okay. We're technically at time. Do you have 2 more minutes so I can wrap up the show, if that's okay with you?
Sure.
Okay. I've got time. I just want to make sure I respect yours. So last question I asked all my guests, Rich, you listen to the podcast. If you ever listen to the end of the episodes, you know it's coming. Is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Yes. Technically, it's 2 pieces of bread and a filler in the middle, whether that's meat, cheese, or some other concoction. I originally thought no, because I don't know what's in the meat of a hot dog. But then you think about peanut butter and jelly, and that's not technically meat or cheese. So whatever's thrown in that hot dog, yes, it's a sandwich.
Right, a grilled cheese sandwich, right? There's no...
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, interesting. That's good. I think you're the first person to point that out in almost 100 interviews. All right. Well, if
I've been listening so long.
Yes. You've been thinking about the important questions that we think about on the podcast.
All I think about. Yeah.
Rich, if people wanted to find you, including lawyers who might be a startup attorney and you're looking for counsel help, probably across the country, so you could get into all the jurisdictions, what's the best way for them to contact you or reach out?
Yeah. Go to my website, startuptechlaw.com, LinkedIn, Rich Rodgers 360, RODGERS, how I spell my last name. And yeah, I can't wait to see where I am in the future with this virtual law plan for other attorneys as well. And how many other startups I'll have by then that I've been helping out. So, and where my pricing is more than anything. So thanks a lot for a lot of advice you gave me as well, because we talked many, many months ago when I first was launching, and you gave me some of these great ideas to experiment with on the pricing models. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to help me out.
Hey, I try to make this thing mutually beneficial. You're giving me good content for the podcast and for others, so it makes it worthwhile. Well, stick around for 30 seconds. But with that, again, Richard Rodgers of Startup Tech Law. Thanks again for coming on the pod.
Thanks again, Matthew. Take care.
And that's our show. Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for being sponsors. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with somebody you think would find value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.